Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Please, if you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, comment and share. Emphasis on hit the subscribe button. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in. So today I'm going to be showing you how I made this beautiful dress, and without further ado, let's dive right into the video. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'll be drawing a straight line, which will be serving as my starting point. So basically all my measurements will start from this place. So now I'm going to take my shoulder to bust point, which is 11 inches. So I'm just going to mark 11 inches. My shoulder to under bust is 14 inches, and my shoulder to waist is 17 inches. So I'm going to go ahead to mark it here again: 11 inches, 14 inches and 17 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect my lines like so. So the next thing, I'll take my standard neckline, 3 inches, and my shoulder measurement, which is 16 divided by 2, that's 8. So I marked 8 inches. Then I came down by 1 inch from that point, and I connected it to my neckline. So the next thing I'll be taking is my armhole. So it's my armhole is 40 divided by 6 plus 1.5, that's 8.5. So I have about 8.5, and I drew a straight line like so. So the next thing I'll be doing is my shoulder measurements, which is 8 inches. I'm going to be transferring it on my chest line just to give me that straight line. Basically, that's what it is for. So I'm just going to connect it like so, and I'm just going to mark the midpoint of my armhole. So the midpoint of my armhole is about 4.25. Then I came back by 3/4 of an inch. Then I took my bust measurement divided by 4, that's 10 inches. 40 divided by 4 is 10, that's 10 inches. So I'm just going to draw my armhole curve just like so. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm just labeling the line: the chest line, the bust point, the under bust and the waistline. So now I'm going to determine how of the shoulder I want it to be. So I'm using 7 inches. So if you don't want your under off, you can use 6, and if you want it to show more cleavage, you can go down. It all depends on your preference. So now the next thing I'll be taking is my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'm marking 4 inches. So then I mark that on my bust point, under bust and waistline, then drew a straight line. So the next thing I'll be doing is to take my darts. So I'm taking 1 inch on both sides, 1 inch on my under bust, 1 inch on the other side also. I'm using 1 inch because I don't want the bust to be too curvy, so that's why I'm using 1 inch. So I advise you use 1 inch. If you're a smaller person, use 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going ahead to connect it to my bust point like so. So after connecting it, I'm going to go ahead to determine what I have at this point of my shoulder. So the midpoint, I'm going to mark the midpoint. Then I'm just going to go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect it from this point to my bust points. So on this point, I'm just going to mark 1 inch here, then 1 inch on the other side. And I'm just going to use my armhole curve to connect it like so. So you just connect it to that 1 inch I marked. So after connecting it, I'm just going to go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect it like so, basically just for the tightening of the yoke, since we are using a yoke and the top itself. So now from this point I'll mark 1.5 inches, then this point I'll mark 1.5 also from the armhole inward. So from this point I came up by 3 inches. So you can come up by 4, you can come up by 4.55. It all depends on your preference. So I'm just going to connect it from this point to this point like so, then from this point to that 1.5 I marked out from the armhole like so. So now that we are done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to take my measurement. So my waist divided by 4, I marked what I have plus my 2 inches that. So also my bust divided by 4, which is 10 inches. Then whatever I have on this point, I went ahead to return it back. So that's just it basically. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect it using my straight ruler. So after connecting it, I'm just going to go ahead to do my round neck, which is I'm using 3.5 by 3.5 inches. Then I'm just going to use my armhole curve to connect it like so. So after connecting it, I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. Please be careful while cutting it out, so just try and see what I'm doing. So I'm cutting out the dart part up to that point, yes, then you cut out again. So just make sure you are not exceeding that 7 inches we came down by. So I'm cutting it now, so just like so just cut it like this. And after cutting this out, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out the upper part. Please just pay attention to what I'm doing. And if you're still watching this video right now, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button if you found this video useful. So now I'm just cutting the neck part of the clothes like so. So now that I'm cutting it out, I'm trying to show you the reason why I did that thing on my yoke. So basically, you're going to place your dart on top of each other. Just this point, those 2 points, place them on top of it, like close up your dart like so. So close up your dart like so, then secure it with the paper tape. So basically this is for the yoke tightening. So secure it with the paper tape. So by the time you are going to place it on your fabric, can you see it's going to be perfect? Just make sure you did what I did. Can you see those points are aligning properly? So just make sure you follow all my steps, and I'm very sure you find this very useful. So for the back, I'm just going to go ahead to mark a straight line. So I drew a straight line. Then I'm just going to go ahead to take my shoulder to waist, which is 17 inches. I marked 17 inches. And also I'm going to mark 17 inches at this point. Then I'm just going to go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect my lines like so. So after doing this, I'm just going to go ahead to take my standard neckline measurement, which is 3 inches. Then my shoulder divided by 2, which is 16 divided by 2, that's 8 inches. So after marking 8 inches, I came down by 1 inch. Then I'm just going to go ahead to connect it using my straight ruler like so. So the next thing I'll be doing is I'll be taking my armhole measurement, which is my bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. So I have 8.5. 40 divided by 6 plus 1.5, that's 8.5. So I went ahead to use my straight ruler to connect the line like so. So after connecting the line, I'm just going ahead to mark my shoulder measurement again here, just to give it like sort of a straight line. So if you know your hand is going to be straight, you can just connect it downwards. So I just took my shoulder measurement on the chest line, just basically to give it a straight line. So now I'm just going to go ahead to take the midpoint of my armhole. So after marking the midpoint, I'm going to come back by half of an inch. Then on this chest line, I'm going to take my bust measurement by 4, that's 10 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead I went ahead to mark 10 inches. Then I went ahead to use my curved ruler to connect this like so. So after connecting it, I'm just going to go ahead to take my dart, which is I marked 4 inches, and I marked 4 inches also on my chest line. Then I went ahead to draw a straight line. So after drawing a straight line, I'm just going to take ½ inch on both sides, then connect it like so. So you can decide not to add that, not necessarily that you have to add that. You don't really have to add that. So it all depends on your preference. So I just added that to mine. You don't really have to do that. So now I'm just going to take my waist divided by 4. So I'm just going to also go ahead to return my dart, which is 1 inch. So I'm just going to return the 1 inch back to this point. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect my bust to my waist. So after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to take my neckline measurement for the back. Also, mind you, I didn't take the zip allowance, so I'm going to be adding the zip allowance when I'm cutting out the fabric. So now for the neck, I marked 5 inches downward. But if you're going to use a regular neckline, you can just mark 1 inch. Then I'm going to mark 3.5 inch, sorry, just like I did for the front, 3.5 by 1 inch if you're going to use the normal neckline. But because I'm not using that, I'm using like a V shape, so I'm going to just connect it all the way to this point. So after connecting it like so, I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So please mind you, I didn't add zip allowance to the pattern paper for the back, so I'm going to be adding it when I'm cutting out the fabric. So now I'm just pinning down the front piece on my fabric. So after I'm done pinning it down, I'm just going to go ahead to add my allowances. So I'm adding half on top, half on the sides, and half inch on the lower part, also half all through half inch, but for the side I'm marking 1.5 inches for my side allowance, because I'll be using half inch to turn over the lining before joining it together. Yeah, so basically that was why I took 1.5 on the side. So I'm just going ahead to cut it out. So after cutting this out, I'm just going to go ahead to also cut out the yoke parts of the clothes. So for the yoke parts, I'm just going to fold my fabric into two, just like so. Then I'm going to place it like so. So after placing it, pinning it down, I'm just going to go ahead to take my allowance. I'm going to take half inch all through for this part. So I'm marking half inch all through the neck, the armhole part, the lower part, mark half inch all through. Also the shoulder part, you're going to go ahead to mark half inch all through. Then I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So this is what we have for the front piece. So I'm just going to notch the mid parts of the yoke part, so notch the important parts. As you can see, I'm notching the important part. So now for this, so like I said, I'm going to be adding my zipper allowance on the fabric. So that's my zipper allowance I added, which is 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to take 1.5 also on the side, and half inch all through the armhole, the shoulder, and the neckline. So the reason I'm taking 1.5 seam allowance on the side is because I need half inch to turn out the lining. Then I'm just going to sew it off by 1 inch using the allowance. If that makes any sense, just follow whatever I'm doing, you're going to understand it. And in case you have any question, you can drop a comment down below. So now that I'm done cutting out the back, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out my skirt. So for the skirt, I'm just going to go ahead to mark a straight line, or draw a straight line, which will serve as my starting point. The next thing I'll be doing is I'll be taking my waist to hips measurement, so which is 9 inches, but because I need half inch to sew it off at the lower part and half inch to sew it at the upper part, I'm going to mark 10 inches, sorry. So I'm just going ahead to mark 10 inches. So basically my waist to hips is 9 inches plus half to sew it on the lower part, half to join it up at the upper part. Basically that will be 10 inches. So that's why I'm marking 10 inches. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'll be taking my waist measurement divided by 4. So my waist measurement is 33 divided by 4. That's around 8.75. So I marked 8.75 and 1 inch sewing allowance, since there's not going to be lining on the skirt. So also my hips divided by 4 plus 1 inch sewing allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect it using my hip curve. So after connecting it like so, I'm just going to go ahead to measure what I have from my waist to hips. So whatever I have from my waist to hips, I'm just going to mark the midpoint. So the midpoint is around 5 inches. So I'm just going to mark 5 inches. So from this point, I'm just going to go ahead to connect it from this point to this point like so. Then I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, I'm just going to, for the back, I'm marking 1 inch. So after marking 1 inch, I'm just going to place my front piece directly on that 1 inch I marked and pin it down. Then I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, I'm just going to go ahead to set the back piece aside. So after setting the back piece aside, on the waist of the front, so now this is me setting out the back piece aside. So on the waist bulges on the waist of the front, you come down by half of an inch. So you're just going to use your curve to connect it like so, as you can see. So after connecting it like so, this helps actually erase bulges on the front part. So after connecting it like so, you're just going to go ahead to cut it out using your scissors. So now that I'm done cutting this out, I'm just going to proceed to the sewing part. So now I already went ahead to cut the lining for the top, because I'm going to be lining because I'm going to be lining the upper part of the clothes, so I went ahead to cut the lining. So now I'm going to be showing you how to join it. So I'm placing the side front and the center front together like so. Make sure the part you notched aligns. So I'm going to place it on the other side also. So the side front is going to be placed just like so, and I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down also. After pinning it down, I'm just going to go ahead to sew it up by 1/2 inch all through, 1/2 inch all through. So also for the lining, mind you, I'm also using the same fabric for the lining for the front parts of this dress. So also I'm going to place the side on the center, pin it down, make sure the notch point, the bust point, the under bust you notched. That's why it's very important to notch, so make sure they align together. So I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down like so and sew it up by 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Also for the yoke part, I'm going to go ahead to also open it up like so, then place it on top of each other. So I'm just going to place it on top of each other. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sewing it up by 1/2 inch round like this, 1/2 inch round like this. Then also the neckline, I will sew it up by 1/2 inch. So also for the back piece, I'm just going to go ahead to also remove my pin, then notch the dart parts. We did like a dart, so as you can see what I'm doing, notch the dart part like so. Then after notching the dart part, I'm just going to go ahead to transfer my dart. So transferring my dart, I'm just basically going to take my pattern paper and measure whatever I have on my pattern paper. So I had 8 inches plus half allowance that I took at the lower part, so I marked 8.5. So I marked 1/2 inch on both sides. So then I went ahead to use my straight ruler to connect like so. Basically I'm just taking whatever my pattern paper and returning it on the fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead to do that for the other side also, and the lining off camera. So I already went ahead to take my darts on the lining and on the other side. So now I already sewed up my front piece, so I'm notching this point, like cut it out, so it's going to properly lay by the time you're going to open it up to the front. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So by the time you turn it over to the front, it's going to properly lay if you notch this point I just notched. So now I'm just going to turn it over to the front part. So after turning it over, I'm just going to take it to the ironing machine and give it a nice press. So now after ironing it, I'm just going to go ahead to notch the middle part of this yoke like so, as you can see, and also notch the middle part of the main fabric for the front, which is basically like the posterior part. So notch the middle part also. So the importance of doing this is just to make sure they are properly aligning. So now as you can see, I'm placing the part I notched on the yoke, the mid part, and also the part I notched on the bustier together just like so. Then I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down, then also place the other side just like this and pin it down. So also the other side, I'm going to be doing the same. Place it properly, then pin it down. Please make sure it is properly arranged when you're doing this part. So after pinning it down, I'm just going to take the lining part just like so, then place it right on top of the main fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down all around, secure it with the pin all around. So secure it with the pin. Then after securing it into the pin, I'm just going to go ahead to sew it by half of an inch on the neckline and also half of an inch on the side, leaving the armhole part out. So also for the back, I already went ahead to sew my darts, taking my darts. Then I'm going to place the lining on the fabric like so. So after placing it like so, I'm going to go ahead to sew it up by half of an inch on the side, half of an inch on the neckline, just like so, half inch on the side, on the zip part, and on the neck. So like I said earlier, the reason why I'm taking 1.5 inches on the zip part and on the sides because I turned it over by half of an inch. So we are going to have just 1 inch to sew it up on the sides and 1 inch for the zip part. So I'm just going to place my back and front together like so, then pin it down, then also place the other side like so, then pin it down. Please ignore the water, it's the water from the steamer. I use the steamer to iron it, so just ignore the water. So I'm just going to pin it down like so, then I'm just going to go ahead to sew it up by 1 inch on the side and half inch on the shoulder part. So now that I'm done doing that, also for the skirt, I'm going to go ahead to place it like so, then place the other side also just like so, the front and back just like so. Then I'm just going to go ahead to sew it up by 1 inch on both sides since there's no lining to turn that out. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is, so this is what we have for the front. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is for the back, to erase bulges for the zip, like bulges for the back, I'm going to go ahead to place it together just like so. Just pay attention to what I'm doing. So the back, I'm placing the back on top of like the zipper point. I'm just placing it on top of each other like so. And after placing it on top of each other, I'm just going to go ahead to secure it with a pin. So after pinning it down, so I'm going to secure the side also with a pin. Just make sure it is properly placed. Okay, so I'm also going to secure the side with a pin. So after pinning it down, on this side of the top, I'm going to come up by 1 inch on this side, on the center back, come up by 1 inch, then connect it down to the side back. Yeah, so after doing that, I'm just going to cut it out. So I'm going to cut it out. So when you do this, it helps like make your dress sit properly, since our back is not like same with our front obviously. So this gives it like a better look at the back. So now that I'm done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to open it up, then place my skirt and my top together. Mind you, as you can see, I already notched the midpoint of the top and the midpoint of the skirt for proper placement. So that's what I'm just doing. I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down. So after I'm done pinning it down, I'm just going to go ahead to sew it up by half of an inch. So this is what we have after sewing it up by half of an inch. As you can see, it's already looking good. So now I'm just going to go ahead to open it up so we can measure what we have on the lower part, because we'll be needing this for the gathered part. So I'm measuring what I have all through, from the back all to the front. So just take your time and properly measure it well. So measure what you have all through. So in my case, I have 48 inches. So that's going to be the width, 48 inches. Then I'm going to multiply it by 2. That's 96 inches. So that's what we'll be using for the width. Do you get it? 48 times 2, that's 96 inches, because I have a total of 48, because we're still going to gather it. So by the time you gather it, it's going to come back to 48 inches. And for the length of the dress is 54 inches. So we are going to measure whatever we have from the shoulder up to this point. So in my case, I already have about 27 inches. So obviously what we need to add is what? Extra 27 inches to give us what? 54 inches. So now I'm going ahead to take my measurement. So on fold, I'm taking 50 inches. Normally, I thought we were supposed to take 48 times 2, which is 96, but I'm just approximating it to 50 inches for the width. And for the length, I said 27 inches, but 27 inches plus 1 inch to hem the lower part, and also half inch to sew up the upper part. That's basically 28.5. So I just went ahead to mark 29 inches. So basically the width I use is 100 inches. Basically I just approximated the 96 to 100 inches, and the length I use is 29 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect it like so. Then I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, I went ahead to hem the lower part, and the upper part I ran a gather stitch, basically the loosest parts on your sewing machine. So run a gather stitch, then gather it all back to that 48 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to measure it if I have 48 inches. If you remember earlier, the lower part of the skirt, the full measurement was 48 inches, and I multiplied it by 2, which was 96, but I took 100 inches approximately. Then now I took a gather stitch, I ran a gather stitch, then I went ahead to gather it back to the 48 inches we're supposed to have. So I have 48 inches. So now I'm just going to fold it into 2 like so. Then I'm going to go ahead to notch the midpoint like so. So also just make sure it's equally distributed, that's the point. So I'm just going to go ahead to open up my cloth like so, then place the midpoint I notched directly on this part. Then I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down all through. So after I'm done pinning it down, please make sure you secure it properly, make sure it's aligning properly. So after I'm done pinning it down, I'm just going to go ahead to sew it up by 1/2 inch. So this is what we have after sewing it up by 1/2 inch. So as you can see, it's beginning to look very beautiful. Please, if you are still watching at this point, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. That's the only way you can support me. So now I'm just going to turn it over to the back like so. So to sew up the back, to close up the back, so I'm just going to join it like so. Then I'm going to go ahead to secure it with a pin, as you can see. So I'm securing the waist part with a pin. So I'm just doing this to make sure it is properly aligned. So the part I joined also, where the gather is starting, I'm also going to secure it with a pin. So also the lower parts, I'm also going to secure with a pin. So from the waistline, I'm going to come down by about 8 inches. So from that 8 inches point, I will come down from. So I'm going to sew it up by 1 inch from this 8 inches point all the way down. So for the sleeve, I just went ahead to fold my fabric into 2, then fold it over since I'm cutting the front and back together. So I use a total of 20 inches. So I'm going to mark the midpoint of 20 inches, that's 10 inches. So I marked 10 inches. Then I came down by 5 inch, sorry. So from that 5 inch, I'm just going to draw a straight line like so. Then I'm going to draw, like using a freehand sketch, draw like a sort of an S kind of shape like so. Then I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. You can as well use flay if you want, but this will work just fine because we are working with little fabric. So I already went ahead to hem the lower part of the sleeve, as you can see. So I aimed it all by 1 inch. So for the fabric, the length depends on you. Actually, it depends on how long you want it to be, but for me, I went to use 20 for the width, and for the length I used 12 inches, sorry. So now I'm just going to pass my elastic inside the part I am. So I'm using 11 inches for the elastic because the round sleeve of the person is about 15 inches. So I'm just going to use 11 inches because I'm still going to sew it up by 1 inch. So I went ahead to cut 11 inches for the elastic. So whatever your round sleeve is, just minus about 6, and that will do just fine. So I'm just going to use my safety pin to pass in my elastic. So after passing in my elastic, this is what we have. So now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the same thing for the other sleeve of camera. So after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to gather the upper parts. So how do you do that? I'm going to take my dress and measure around my armhole, including the 1 inch allowance. So I'm measuring everything all through. So I have about 10 inches. So that's what I'm going to be gathering this upper part of the sleeve into. So I'm going to gather it for till 10 inches. So now I'm already done gathering it back to that 10 inches. Then I went ahead to sew it up by 1 inch, leaving us with 9 inches, obviously, because the top two also we took the allowance by 8. So by the time we place them together, it's going to align. So now this is what we have for the sleeve. So now I'm just going to go ahead to attach my sleeve to the armhole part, then secure it with a pin. Just attach it round, then secure it with a pin. I'm doing that for the both sleeves. So now after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to sew it. So after sewing, this is what we have. I sewed it up by half of an inch. So this is what we have after sewing it up. The next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be attaching my zip to my dress. So I went ahead to attach my zip to my dress, and I kept it on my mannequin, and this is what we have. Please, if you find this video useful and you're able to learn, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please guys, hit the subscribe button, like, comment and share. Hit the subscribe button, like, comment and share, and see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.